The Last of Us Season 2 has been getting a lot of hate online, like a shit ton, and I can't help but think that we've lost the point somewhere in these comparison critiques. And while I can understand the urge to want adaptations to be compliant with the source material, I was much the same way during the Percy Jackson show. There is something so disheartening to see this much hate towards the show I love. So I decided to make a video, and after a dozen rewatches and so many revisions to script, here is a look at The Last of Us Season 2 through the lens of someone who's never played the game and probably never will. The Last of Us Season 1 was a contained story about two people, full of loss, learning to hope, to love. It was about a dilemma. Would you choose the person you love or the world? Which redeems you more? It was an array of stories held together by love, by the cost of loving someone so dearly that you would do anything to preserve this love, even at the cost of everything. Season 2, however, deals with the consequences of this love, this violence. It asks, what happens when, in saving your world, you kill someone else's? A traumatic event by definition is incomprehensible. It is a disruption to the very core of who we are. In the wake of this, we repeatedly try to assimilate our trauma with our inner schemas or who we were. During these frequent visitations, we can often develop traumatic obsessions. Abby and Ellie both are traumatized by Joel's violence, which is what makes their dynamic, the little of it that we have seen, so compelling. For Ellie, making a cure was her purpose, her justification for all the horrible things she had done, all the horrible things that had been done to her. It was her anchor, the one thing that held her personality, her schema, together. In contrast, Abby finds her father shot in the head, left adrift with no community or purpose. Because in saving Ellie, Joel not only killed her father but also her purpose, her entire community. Thus, in the 5 years that follow, both Ellie and Abby obsess over that day, creating illusions and justifications. The second episode is effectively the inciting incident of the season. It is a break in the normality, the loss that anchors the entire season and everything to follow. This episode deals with the death of Joel, who is one of our main characters, but there is also an invasion at Jackson, thus every sense of safety is ripped away from our characters. The Jackson Hole battle was a massive action set piece made bigger by the show's practical approach to action. From season 1, the creators have shown an immense dedication to being as real as possible. They tried their best to do as much practical effects as possible, from bringing in giraffes and horses to hiring live actors to play the infected. This is done in an effort to ground the show and to make it seem like this is something that can happen in the real world. Even so, episode 2 was a gamble, and had it not been shot perfectly, acted out with emotion, and edited with precision, it would have failed. However, the finished product that we have is far from a failure. From the Abbey sequences to the battle at the town, there is a sense of urgency in every shot. There is not a single moment where we get a break until the end. The attention to detail by the set makers, actors, and directors is insane.
Joel and the special effects department had constructed this almost like a fireproof rickshaw, and basically charge along right next to our bloater, flamethrower there and camera right there, with often the flame coming right across the lens in such an immersive way.
They really want us to feel every part of this battle. They built a sledge so that we can feel Abby slipping, scared and out of her depth in a new environment, or in the way that we can hear the ringing as Ellie dissociates from everything around her except Joel. But the sheer scale of this battle only makes the loss of Joel so much more impactful, because in one place we see evolution, war, and flamethrowers, but in another there is just the cruelty of humans towards one another. There is just this grief. The grief in Ellie's screams, in her proclamation of revenge, the grief that pours out of Abby when she hits him over and over and over.
And if she reminds you a little bit, say, of what Joel felt like when he lost his daughter, well, that's not unintentional.
2 is very much about the cycles of violence. Abby kills Joel because he murdered her dad. In doing so, she murders Ellie's dad and puts her on the same path. However, the show doesn't stop there, because Ellie turns her grief into revenge, because that's what she's been taught to do, because she feels that is what Joel would have done. Thus, there is almost a Cassandran tragedy through the season, in knowing the end yet not being able to change it. Episode 3 thus functions as a memoriam, From the very first shot of the bodies being filed up, we can see that this is a way to grieve. Ellie wakes in a hospital bed, unable to stop screaming because she is still in that room. She is stuck in the memory, visiting it again and again. However, 3 months later, we can see that she is able to put herself together because all of her energy is extended towards revenge. This act of anger is the thing that holds her together, a new purpose to replace her old one. Thus, a traumatic obsession is formed. Episode 3 also very succinctly introduces the secondary theme of the season, communities, because we not only see how Ellie grieves Joel, but how the whole society around her. Physical death of a person is instantaneous, his or her social death is an extended process, whereby the identities of both the deceased and the bereaved are in a fluid state between social position. What are the social rituals of mourning in a world where death is so common? The community of Jackson are rational in their outlook to Joel's death. Despite showing sympathy, they are not ready to use town resources to avenge him. They, unlike Joel or Ellie, think in terms of community instead of family, because communities can often signal stability, identity, and that is more important than anything in a world with so little of it. Although we have seen this type of communities in season 1 of this series, season 2 really highlights how violence can be shaped to build communities. Ellie and Dina find bodies and ruins of this war as they travel along Seattle, painting a dire picture of how communities have to be violent in this world. The Seraphites survive through religious indoctrination, whereas the Wolves are very much a military dictatorship. This dogma of us versus them is highlighted a lot throughout the episode but comes to a head in episode 7 when we see this conflict reaching Jesse and Ellie. The two are already on fraught terms, but they have a huge debate about community versus self needs. There's a real justification that we see that is made in terms of communities. Everyone from the WLF to the Fireflies uses the excuse of humanity to do inhuman things. We often anchor our own identity and esteem through our relation with others, which is part of the reason why we are hit with such disruption when the person that anchored our self identity. The Last of Us has always anchored its narratives in two-person relations. In season 1, Joel slowly heals from his grief of losing Sarah because of his love towards Ellie. Narratively, Ellie acted as a light to his darkness, the healing force that compels him to change. In season 2, Dina is supposed to function in much the same way, offering hope for a chance at peace. But where Joel heals, Ellie regresses. Despite Ellie's love for Dina, she can't let go of his death. Episode 4 thus becomes a tool to show us the bond that Dina and Ellie start to develop. The guitar scene is a welcome break from the violence and grief of Seattle to show us a new side of Ellie. It also functions as a reminder that Joel taught her to play the guitar to create and not only to destroy. It shows us that she can respect his legacy through other means without violence, which he never wanted her to inherit. This episode largely follows Dina's POV as she slowly falls for Ellie, overcoming her fear of her own sexuality. This fear often paralyzes her and leads to regret when Ellie is dead. When she survives, it becomes her second chance and they kiss. This episode represents the hope for this world, the hope that Ellie can heal.
Together.
Romantic obsessions are an infiltration of the past into the present. We open episode 5 with a glimpse into Elise. Her scene effectively functions to show us someone opposite of Joel, someone who chose their community, the world, before their child. This episode also functions as a point of no return for Ellie and various other characters. The episode starts with Ellie and Dina trying to be happy, but is interrupted when Ellie is once more hit with grief. Despite knowing that Dina is pregnant, Ellie allows her to go to a hospital filled with infected, all in a hope to find Nora. Both Ellie and Dina are too caught up in their revenge fantasies to weigh the risk of this operation. However, they slowly realize that they have miscalculated and bitten off more than they can chew. This scene is a masterclass in both suspense and action. The music, the panic, and the way Ellie takes charge after a season of her being passive. The stunt team has done a brilliant job coordinating the fights between the infected and the characters. The infected outnumber them by 11, and we can assume that there is almost certain death in their future. But at the last moment, Jessie enters the room. Ellie almost thinks that he is Joel and is once more stuck in the past in her memories. In escaping, they witnessed a Seraphite ritual, the normalization and almost fetishization derived from violence. This scene not only conveys the external threat that they are in, but also the internal threat of what Ellie could become if she continues on this path. The Seraphites then catch them and Dina is shot. This leads to them going their separate ways and splitting off. Despite not knowing if Dina is okay, if she needs help, or if Jessie needs help, Ellie catches sight of the hospital and chooses her revenge. Trauma is often characterized by a loss of control, helplessness. This fear can lead to anger and later rage. For Ellie, Nora is the reason for this helplessness. She's the one who held her down, who stopped her from saving Joel. Nora, much like Dina, completely agrees with Abby's choice and even mocks Joel.
The little bitch got what he deserved.
This leads to Ellie chasing after her as she escapes into a basement full of spores. This scene then becomes a chilling display of Ellie's anger, her willingness to cross lines in service of her revenge. In avenging Joel, she becomes just like his murderer. We open the episode with a flashback to Joel's childhood, where we find out that his father is physically abusive. We see that Joel tries to protect Tommy by taking the blame for his mistakes, but instead of punishing him, his father sits down and just talks.
When it's your turn, I hope you do a little better than me.
Thus, there is this idea of the cyclical nature of violence and the abuse from the get-go. We follow Joel as he celebrates Ellie's birthdays over the 5 years spent in Jackson. He spends all of this time trying not to fail Ellie, but there is a disconnect because we know he's lying to her. He's so afraid of doing the wrong thing, partly because he knows he already has. This episode shows the slow erosion of their relationship as Ellie grows and slowly comes to realize that Joel has lied to her. This episode is also the last time that we will ever see them, and there is a sense of melancholy in every scene they occupy together because of future that we know lies in store. The main conflict of the episode occurs when we go on patrol together and find Eugene. Eugene has been bitten by the infected and wants to see his wife one last time before the infection takes hold of him. Joel believes that this is an unnecessary risk and does not want to partake in it. However, Ellie begs him to reconsider and let Eugene see his wife. Joel agrees to this and sends Ellie away. However, his true plan is to just shoot him before Ellie comes back. This leads to Ellie realizing that Joel can lie and has lied about the fireflies as well.
You swore.
We also circle back to the New Year scene, but instead of Ellie's point of view this time, we see Joel's and how heartbroken he is to lose his connection to Ellie. There's also a recontextualization of the porch scene as we realize that Ellie didn't just walk to her room, she came back to the porch. And this time, instead of shouting or lying or making justifications about his actions, Joel just talks to her. In doing so, he is ready to pay the price to lose his relationship with Ellie. He has come to terms with what he's done, much like his father. He too just wants her to do better and is willing to lose his relationship with her. But instead of giving him the cold shoulder or turning him down, Ellie in return extends an olive branch. This is a moment of healing for their relationship and a moment that Ellie accepts that her purpose may just be to love, to stay here in Jackson, to not save the world, but simply hers.
If you should ever have one of your own. Well then, I hope you do a little better than me.
After a return to the past and a point of no return, the finale is the final reckoning. It explores the lengths that Ellie is willing to take in her quest and how much she is willing to sacrifice to further her end. The episode starts with her confessing that the violence felt easy to her. More importantly, she also knows that the group doesn't deserve her judgment and yet delivers it anyway. Even Dina, who supported her from day one, believes it's time to return home, but Ellie clearly disagrees. I have seen a lot of people criticize Bella's acting in the theatre scene, but I think it's a perfect portrayal of the numbness that she is experiencing right now. It's also much more powerful to have her breakdown at the end of the episode instead of the start and the end. This whole episode, Ellie, while outwardly ready to go home, does not want to do that and is very much still stuck in revenge. So when the opportunity comes to find Abby, Ellie abandons Tommy, who might be in real danger, fights with Jessie just for a chance to find Abby despite everything that has led up to this moment. This is such an accurate representation of how grief can make you isolated.
Let me tell you about my community. My community was beaten to death in front of me while I was forced to fucking watch.
Because everyone has moved on, but you can't, because it often feels like you are still stuck in that moment. There is no going back for Ellie because she lost hers. There is no peace, no resolution. She tries to threaten Abby's friends Mel and Owen when they try to attack her, she shoots Owen and by accident hits Mel, who is pregnant. This is her breaking point because there is no justification, no excuse she can make for killing an innocent child. There can be no reasoning to absolve her of this guilt. She becomes horrified at what she's become, the people she's harmed. Still, in the last scene where Tommy asks her if she can make peace with letting Abby live, Ellie responds with,
Guess I'll have to.
showing that she still hasn't learned her lesson. She and Jesse reconcile because he knows that no matter the cause, she would burn the world for him. Therefore, there is a sense of peace in the moment, knowing that Ellie has once again become connected to her friends, to her family, and in knowing that Ellie tries to be better like Joel told her to be. Until Abby crashes through the theater.
I let you live. And you
And you
wasted.
realize so much of the story is going to be about perspective. Who the heroes are and who the villains are is based on where you're standing.
In conclusion, the season is about exploring grief, the consequences of violence, and the cycles of revenge. It is not devoid of faults, specifically the last episode and a lot of character moments where it almost feels like Ellie is more passive than Dina, who almost takes the front and center role. In spite of this, on a macro scale, it is still miles above a lot of media right now. In a world of CGI and remakes, The Last of Us dares to do something different, to do something real. The changes made may be good, may be bad, but we cannot deny that they are done with good intention. There is so much passion in every shot, every line delivery. It is so obvious, so clear that this cast and crew loves the game, loves the story. The show should be applauded, not only viewed in comparison to the video game. While everyone is entitled to their opinion, I sincerely hope that the hatred that has been perpetuated online does not take away from the love that these creators have for the story, because art, be it messy, inaccurate, or uncomfortable, is the highest form of love we have.